In this video, we'll be taking apart the Motorola X70 Air, which is also known as the Motorola Edge 70 in different regions. If you're interested in seeing more videos like this, make sure you subscribe and click on the notification bell so you'll be notified once I upload a new video. Also, if you need any tools, there are links in the description. To start off, the SIM tray needs to be removed. Looking at the SIM tray, we can see a red rubber gasket around the opening. At this point, heat needs to be applied to the backplate using either a hairdryer or a heat gun to loosen up the adhesive underneath, and then a pry tool can be used to pry the backplate off. I prefer to use a hairdryer since there's less of a chance of damaging any of the components inside by overheating them. Here's a better look at the silicone nylon backplate. The camera lens covers can be replaced by applying heat and prying them off, so you don't have to take apart the phone to replace those. You can also see that the cover for the rear ambient light sensor is made to look like a camera. This is just to make it look more aesthetically pleasing. There are now 14 Phillips screws which need to be removed. Taking a look at the motherboard cover, we see the NFC antenna, the LED flash, the rear ambient light sensor, as well as an antenna flex cable located on the top left corner. The wireless charging coil is located in the center, and there's a large area of graphite film to help transfer heat. Here's a look at the other side. The cables for the battery can now be disconnected, followed by the rest of the cables. The flex cable for the screen is connected on the bottom corner, so if you needed to replace the screen, you'd have to remove the back plate, the screws on the bottom cover and the cover itself, giving you access to disconnecting the screen cable, at which point you would heat up the front of the phone where the screen is to loosen up the adhesive underneath, pry the old screen off, apply new adhesive and reapply the new screen, making sure you run the flex cable back to the opening in the mid-frame, and reassemble the phone. The coaxial cables can be disconnected by just popping them off. There's a single Phillips screw which is holding down the main board. Looking at the main board, we see the 50 megapixel main camera, as well as the 50 megapixel ultra-wide lens. The main camera has OIS or optical image stabilization. There's a secondary microphone on the top corner, as well as copper tape or film to help transfer heat. The camera connectors can be disconnected by just popping them off. And there's also a liquid damage indicator sticker, which is that white sticker on the bottom corner. Looking at the other side, we can see the 50 megapixel front facing camera, as well as additional copper film or tape on the back shields and thermal paste to help transfer heat. Once the copper film has been peeled back, we see additional thermal paste on top of these chips, as well as the thermal pad over the RAM and the copper plate over the processor. Here's a better look with the thermal pad and copper plate removed. And here's a closer look at the copper heat plate. Now when it comes to removing the battery, Motorola has yet to implement a pull tab or a pull pouch to help you pry it off. So you'll need to use some isopropyl alcohol and apply it to the sides of the battery and let it sit for about 30 seconds to a minute so it eats away at the adhesive underneath, making it easier to pry it off. This is the 4800 mAh battery. Once the battery has been removed, we see this flex cable which connects the subboard to the main board, as well as this flex cable which connects the main board to the SIM reader and the screen cable. Once those flex cables have been peeled back, we have a better look at the vapor chamber, which runs underneath the motherboard as well as the battery. This is the fingerprint scanner. There's a single Phillips screw which is holding down the subboard. Looking at the subboard, we can see a red rubber gasket around the charger port, and the primary microphone is covered by this shield. Here's a look at the other side. The bottom speaker is held in place with some adhesive, so if you need to replace that, just apply some heat and gently pry it off. The same goes for the vibrator motor, which is located here. Now when it comes to this phone, if you were to accidentally insert a SIM ejector tool in the wrong hole, you don't need to worry since both the filters and the microphones are seated above the holes and wouldn't get damaged. The hole which is located below the power button is an air relief hole to equalize the air pressure inside the phone when it's being sealed for water resistance. As for replacing the power button or volume keys, just like some of the Motorola phones, which I don't really like, the way it's designed, the flex cable is routed through an opening in the mid-frame, which does require also prying the screen off to gain access to replacing those. And when it comes to prying their screen off, that always poses a high chance of damaging the screen, so unless you have a damaged or non-working screen, I wouldn't recommend prying the screen off to replace any of those. The proximity and front ambient light sensor board is located here, which is held down with some adhesive, and the same goes for the earpiece speaker located next to that. For the repairability score on this phone, I give it a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to put the phone back together. Once everything's back in place, apply new adhesive and reapply the back cover. Flip over the phone, power it on, and you're done. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.